I'm sitting here with Mr. Phil of Lancet Fencing. So he is from what I understand, founder, designer, and manufacturer of Lancet Fencing products. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
All right. So why don't you go ahead and just give us a brief introduction on your background in fencing
Sure.
and design and manufacturing, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I've been fencing for 40 years. I have 40 years of fencing experience. I started off in foil. I went to school at the University of Illinois in school. I was on the fencing team there. And I was assistant foil coach at what was called Fencing 2000 in Chicago, came out of Chicago. And then I went to the Chicago Athletic Association Fencers Club. That is also defunct at this point. And I was also, a rapier and fencing coach at Red Star Fencing in Chicago, which is there now. And this is prior to me having moved to New York for work purposes. So I've been fencing for 40 years. And I'm a designer of probably multidisciplinary designer of probably 40 years or so, about the same amount since my fencing and schooling coincided, basically.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's how most people come into it, right? I mean, from what I understand from what you just said, you started in college, right, as an adult.
I started before
Right.
college.
Oh, okay.
I did. I was with a club called Pioneer Fencing Club in Western Springs, Illinois. And this was a long time ago, Jeremy. So, uh, but it was a great experience. I was walking, I was in high school and I was walking by a friend of mine's locker and he had fencing pictures up there.
That's how it started.
Yeah, I said, what's that? And he said, that's fencing, the coolest sport in the world, man. It
He's
was
not
funny.
wrong, right? But it's so
Yeah,
serendipitous how people come into it. It's crazy.
yeah. From then on, I took an adult education class in fencing, and that class turned into a club, which was in Western Springs, Illinois.
That's
Yeah,
super sick.
it's
Yeah,
fun.
like I said, it's especially for people who kind of don't come into it as like, fetuses like 5 or 6 or whatever. It always seems to be just this like random kind of universal pull into the sport. It's really cool.
Oh, I
Um,
always loved it.
yeah.
Dune was the Dune books for me. Um, were books that really influenced me as far as fencing is concerned.
And would you
Um,
say they influenced you like aesthetically as well? Is that kind of why Lancet is a little almost futuristic, kind of modernized look to it? Would you say that's an influence?
I think it could possibly be an influence. The idea is, my design is about combining the antique with the modern. I see fencing as a living history. I
Mhm.
don't see it as, we have the modern sport now and then we have the ancient art. I think there has been a continuous legacy of fencing for a very long time. And I think our Western fencing has documented that very, very well, probably the most complete and comprehensive documentation of all martial arts. So I better not say
Yeah,
that.
it's interesting that you refer to it as a martial art. I mean, I completely agree, but I feel like, especially in the public eye, especially to non-fencers, it's not really, it doesn't fall in the same kind of category. It still kind of carries this like elitist, almost Richie Rich kind of, you know,
Yeah,
esoteric activity, not really a martial art.
that's
But
funny. I find that funny because I haven't encountered the super rich in fencing at
yeah,
all.
I agree. I agree. It's like it's so modernized now. But it does. Let's not be disingenuous. It does take a bit of funds to compete and stuff at a national level and stuff. But if you're just coming into it casually, I think it's very accessible.
Sure, any sport though will take you a little bite out of your wallet to compete
Right.
nationally. Yeah,
Right. All right. And so let's dive into the meat and potatoes of this. So
sure thing.
Lancet fencing. What is kind of the mission statement? I know you already touched on this kind of briefly, but what is the main driving ethos that kind of drove you to found and create and kind of journey on this mission of modernization?
Well, back in the early or mid 90s, I had this sort of things were coming out in fencing. HEMA hadn't been really organized at that point. There was the WMA. I'm not sure very much of the timeline there, uh, but there were a lot of different organizations in fencing, and there were a lot of sort of fencing scares where in the Olympic sport, people were saying at some point that they wanted to combine all the weapons into one because it was taking up too much time. I loved fencing so much. I wanted to promote the sport. I wanted it to be something everyone was interested in or become cooler, right?
I
Um,
feel exactly the same way. Yeah.
yeah. And at that time, in my my youth, I felt I could do it. I felt that I could do this sort of thing, and I wanted to redesign the sport. I wanted to redesign the sport so that it would have appeal to a much wider range of individuals. And I felt that the one of the things that was sort of a barrier to the entry of the sport to people uh, was the rules. I think there were at that time I felt that the rules at the time when people came in were somewhat disillusioned when they came into the sport and they wanted to fence foil or epee or saber, and they got these devices. I'm not sure if I can say weapons on YouTube. I don't want you to get covered.
It's fine. I am not anywhere where I'm trying to monetize anything. You can say whatever you want.
Oh, okay, very cool. Because we call them weapons, and they
Yeah,
are.
I mean they are. I mean, I think everyone in the community, what weapon defense,
Right. What weapon do you fence? So in any case, I wanted to redesign the sport,
Mhm.
and I thought it would for what's a modern sensibility. Foil was designed, and don't get me wrong, I love the sport of fencing. I love the rules of fencing. I love the rules of foil, but I felt and that their meaning was a little difficult for people of modern sensibility to grasp. The idea of the right of way was meant to represent the fear of the point and
Right.
all these sorts of things.
And I think when you break it down that way, it's like, oh, if someone was rushing at you or thrusting, a sharp object at you, your immediate reaction would not be to do the same right back. It would be to parry. So I
It
think
would,
that's definitely the right way to go about it, explaining
yeah.
it to, the layman per se.
In any case, fencing is dangerous. The weapons are dangerous, and fencing happens at such a high speed that you can't really use weapons of you know the sort of quality of a real weapon that has the qualities of real weapon to represent it. And I think that's in any case to get back. Uh, a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but I could go into it later. Um, but what I thought was necessary was to take the sort of grandfather weapon, the sport of the weapons, um, and combine them. And basically, the foil, epee, and saber are all. I remember speaking to one of my coaches at the time, Boris Lukumsky, and he, said that they're all one weapon. Foil, epee, and saber are all combined arts or fragmented arts of a single weapon, and that was the rapier. And of course, the rapier, I hate that word. It's a sword, right?
Yeah.
Here's a sword.
Because I mean, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not super well versed in like HEMA or historical. But a rapier, I mean, it can be a thrusting weapon, it can be a cutting weapon. Is that correct? I think most
Sure,
people in modern times they think rapier, they think strictly kind of Three Musketeer style thrusting.
absolutely. But a metal stick is a metal stick.
Right.
You're going whatever's optional for you, you're going to use to attempt to defend yourself, regardless of whether or not it has an edge to it or not. You know. That being said, so I wanted to design I thought it needed an archetype, and I thought, well, what, given our modern techniques, what might the rapier look like now?
If it came into existence manufactured for modern day.
Yeah, if the form followed the function of our sport or our art, our, the techniques that we use now, or which to some degree are similar to what has always been.
Hmm.
And so I used my design experience and my experience in fencing and designed what I call the modern rapier. And you can probably see that on my site.
Mhm.
Um, and that is this one.
I
Mine
don't
is a
think it's
little,
quite in frame. Yeah. That one is tight. Yeah, I love
this,
that.
this has the short handle, which is more of
Mhm.
the uh, rapier style handle. I have a longer handle. Take it apart for you here.
And the way that you're holding it right there, I mean, this is obviously nowhere close to pistol grip, but it almost forces your fingers into that same kind of delineation, as a pistol grip would.
Well, a human only ergonomically holds things in a certain way.
Right.
We could get into this. I mean, this is a very long story, but as you know, the Belgian grip is considered to be the closest to the sort of French grip. And there have been definition entries that say that the first ergonomic grip was the Italian rapier. I would say no. I would say that the first ergonomic grip was the Spanish foil, as the Italian rapier or the Italian foil was simply a diminutivization of the rapier itself or the sword itself, right? In any case, with a very strong tang that comes all
Oh
the
yeah,
way back,
it's
right?
chunky.
So, yeah, I wanted to design something that would stand up to a baseball bat, right? And I wanted to
Yeah.
say, look, fencing, even if it's considered, sort of a hoity-toity sport and not really a martial art,
Mm.
well, I guarantee if you come at me with a baseball bat and this, I'd win.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold my own. Yeah.
Right, right. I might be able to do that. In any case, people say sledgehammer and so on. The cool thing about this is that the right here at the shoulder, it actually slots in. So
Ooh.
that, yeah, you see, it usually that's remains. I don't know if you can see it. This remains somewhat exposed to the cross section, the cross hilt, and here it slots in so that the quillen block actually surrounds the ricasso with at least 1/8 of an inch of steel, right?
And it seems way more, I mean, sturdy and in place than like, a sport fencing saber would be, where
Or,
like it's just really held in place by a pommel, just screwed in, jammed in as much as you can.
right. It's definitely designed in that with that in mind, right?
So when started Lancet Fencing, did the HEMA or, the more historical oriented swords come first, or was it the sport fencing stuff first?
As I said, I designed the sport. I designed the this weapon,
Hmm.
this device, right? And then I wrote a set of rules that I felt would make sense so that everyone could fence each other. Foil, epee, saber. They all combine different aspects of the rules. And you can find that on my blog, Lancet Fencing blog. Uh,
Okay. We'll definitely have to
it,
pull that out. But if you wouldn't
it
mind
has
giving us
no
a
trap.
brief overview.
But yeah, there's actually there's quite a few documents. There's the rules and then the hit kind of helping page. But in any case, I wrote a set of rules, and it didn't happen in the round because of the idea was to allow fencers to move in any way they wanted,
Oh, so freely. Yeah.
to move freely, allow fencers to use any technique they wanted. So there was no sort of right of way uh, corresponding there. And I had issues with epee, the cutoff, the electric cutoff. I thought that that was
Oh, so
much too
this is
short.
still all electric, these rule sets that you designed. It's still in mind with electric fencing.
They are designed for dry or electric. And what I designed, I attended the Western Martial Arts Conference and I actually competed there. I think I took second place.
Awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, I was happy about it. Well, I wasn't happy about losing. No offense, there is, but
Yeah.
it was a good time. I was a lot younger at that time. The idea was, where was I? The idea was that we know that what would the point penetrate, and so that was 4 pounds of pressure. They said, the whole idea was the idea. There was these things about the flick and the point and whether or not the epee spring was strong enough to represent real fencing. That's why they use these heavier blades so that it had to bend considerably in order for it to score a point. And I actually came to a completely different conclusion. What I did was design a spring of 4 pounds pressure spring, and actually I have a bunch of them. They actually lift a 4 pound weight. So we decided to use that with beepers. The technology for the wireless technology that exists today wasn't around at that time. And we started wiring epees so that we could move at the full speed of a fencer and not have to worry about the stiffness and the stiffness of the blade doing harm to the
Right.
right. And what I found was that this 4 pound spring goes down pretty fast.
Yeah.
Beep.
I mean, 4 pounds of pressure, it sounds like a lot, but it's really from a human, not that much effort to exert that
It,
much force.
it isn't. You can actually see on YouTube some examples of us fencing Lancet. Fencing Lancet. That's Lilia Chen and my good friend and coach Bakir Abdukulov. There's comments in the rules there that were very negative in the
I
sense
mean,
that
the
he was wearing,
traditionalists tend to be, I think.
well, that he was wearing he was wearing his coaching jacket.
Oh, right, right. But she's
And
not. I mean,
yeah, you don't really hit very, very hard enough for that. But if you notice, they're
oh, wow.
using,
Okay. Here we go.
yeah. If you notice, there's lines on the floor and see those chevrons, that's the on guard line. And the one way in the back there is the reset. And Lancet has rules because the approach of two fencers is very important, as opposed to just standing in the middle.
You know what's
Uh,
really tripping me out about this, though, is that you would think that this would radically change the game, and I'm sure it does, but I mean, it's still very watchable and not that much different from a regular epee bout, just a little more dynamic and a little more fun to look at.
you can use your offhand parry.
Oh, interesting. Like you can
You
grab the blade, or
and there, if you just noticed what that was, if you could
let's
go
rewind
back,
that a little bit.
Lilia hits Bakit in the mask with the pummel. So they get bound up a little bit right here. She blocks it, but you'll see.
And so does the pommel hit count as a
Yep.
hit? And does
From
that
point
ring a
pummel.
light, or is that just strictly like a
No,
side judge thing?
that's a visual thing. We're gonna have to.
Okay.
She's gonna do it now. There it is.
Yeah.
Bam.
And it's like, in real life, you would, if you got stuck there, boom.
That's right. The idea is that the sword is used so that you don't get into a fight. Uh,
Right.
the idea was that you don't want a wrestler to get you because a wrestler will
They'll
get
grapple you. Yeah.
you.
Then that sword's
uh,
useless.
the rapier is there to keep people away from you and to end the fight. She does a very good job there.
And it's like a lot of people, because this kind of idea of free form fencing like this, where you can move in a circle, gets passed around like the fencing subreddit, different forums and stuff a lot. And the biggest thing is people go, oh, well, just make all our footwork, all our techniques completely, it'd be thrown out the window. But clearly not. I mean,
No,
like I said, it still looks very much like a regular epee bout. This is a
yeah,
little more
with
dynamics.
some of these arguments, and I didn't know how to promote myself. I didn't know any of that stuff. Plus, I had a career that was going on
Right. More
at the
important fish to
time,
fry.
and it would not. All the techniques that we use would still maintain that. I had faith in fencing. I knew that fencing, the techniques that we use, are all viable and
Right.
viable with a 360-degree forearm. Um, and as you can see, it happens.
It holds up
There are also
extremely,
very
surprisingly well.
Yeah, very, very well. I mean, Wing Chun works along the line of attack, fencing works along the line of attack. And there are definitions in old books that specifically say that the line of attack is not the piece. The line of attack is between you and your opponent and your
Wherever they
emotion.
may be, right?
Yeah, that's right. And your body moves in a particular way. You know, Jeet Kune Do, Bruce Lee's martial art, he was a fencer. He did incorporate many fencing techniques into his martial art or his technique. You can see written in his books where he talks about doubles and triples, you know, disengages and so on and so forth. And he was a what would be considered a southpaw fencer, but that would be us. We fence with our blade forward.
Right.
But again, you know, back in the day, that was what's called that was a polite action to fence
To
the
keep the
way.
blade forward.
Yeah, in many ways, to give the blade was a
Right.
sign of respect. Here, I'm giving you my blade. Do it, you know, and we will fence. But you'll see in other things, my other videos. I think Ferris was a World Cup epéist, saberist, and he used to fence with us. But he was also a kendo fencer. He fenced kendo,
And that
and
has full range of motion as
brought
well for anyone who doesn't know.
yeah, he brought a lot of his technique to Lancet, and that's the whole point. Is that it encouraged people to use methods and see if they work because the rules don't dictate that. The rules are based on where you hit, when you hit, and that's it, and based on tempo. We could go into the rules, but I strongly encourage you to go and download the documents I have there and check them out because there are some red letter um, explanations of the rules and why the things happen, why they are the way they are. The original question one was why did I design it? Well, I designed to reinvent the sport, and then it just moved. You know, I had a career. I was a creative director, and there wasn't really enough time for me to do what I was doing, and social media wasn't at the point where I was really able to get the word out far and wide.
Hmm.
And I was only one man.
Right.
Uh, but just recently, I've had the opportunity to sort of readdress the IP, Lancet Fencing. And I think that might be your next question in the sense that I can use my ability in design and speak to all fencers, not Olympic sport, only Olympic sport fencers, but HEMA fencers and
Right.
just classical fencers. I just
Well,
felt
ultimately,
there's
we're all under the same umbrella, the same wide umbrella.
yeah, if I ever write a book, it's going to be called There Is Only Fencing. And you know, you'll see on TikTok, there's people calling it sword fighting and so on and so on, differentiate between the Olympic sport and so on. But in reality, it's all fencing. What they're doing is fencing. What the Olympic sport is doing is fencing. And what I do is fencing, but it's
We're all
completely,
just fencing with extra steps at the end of the day.
yeah. I mean,
So
the techniques are all there. They're all there.
they're all based on the same thing. Yeah. So I'm looking at your can you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
So what I really wanted to so first of all, I think that the guard design of the saber is badass. I just think it's so slick.
Oh,
Um
the guard.
yeah, so is the guard would it looks to me like a little more narrow, you know?
Oh, I based that on sort of a Hungarian saber guard.
And would
It
that be like tournament legal in like
Yeah,
USA fencing?
are those. They just stopped making them because you
Oh,
know they're. I don't know how many people use that thing. I remember Fence, American Fencer Supply, who by the way is had suffered quite a bit from the California wildfires, and who are no longer. I can't get equipment from them, which is a real shame. Just want people to know that they could probably use some support if they are even taking support at that time and at this time. AmFence used to sell all kinds of things: theatrical fencing equipment, sport fencing equipment, and they had a lot of old cool stuff in their catalog. They just, of course, designed their site a long time ago and never updated it, so it's very
yeah,
difficult to
as it
see what.
goes.
Yeah, but I did. I went in there and looked around and got stuff. And that saber guard is sort of a is kind of an old school Hungarian looking guard. You can still find them in places.
Yeah,
You can
I mean,
still find.
I think it looks super cool. I love how angular it looks and everything. It's definitely something that I would want to rock. And I guess leading into like a I guess leading into my most primary question, right? All of your sport fencing offerings, your grips, all that kind of stuff, they're all
Which are
USA fencing approved.
yeah, yeah. Well, look, the idea, unlike other sports equipment like the jacket and your mask and all those things actually have an approval process,
Mhm.
right? There's actually, there is an approved sort of vetting process for these pieces of equipment, but the grips don't. You can use whatever grip you want as long as they abide by the rules.
And so this
Problem
modern French here.
modern, yeah.
Yeah, so what was the design ethos going into this product specifically? Because I see this like this big on the left hand side, that kind of like big protrusion right there. Almost looks to me like a saber guard, you know, like those Harut Cobra saber guards.
1 second, I'll show you. We talked about them. That is sort of the modern French is my sort of flagship design. It's a beautiful. For me, it's a beautiful design. You can see it here. I'm holding it up. Um, and can you see it? No.
Let me switch over so that way people can see you a little more clearly.
Okay, so this is the modern French, right?
Mhm.
And people kind of think that this thing actually has some sort of gripping quality, but it doesn't. It really moves up and down. You move up and down the handle quite a bit. It doesn't inhibit you from reaching the guard. Um, but as I said, I try to create not things only of beauty, but a purpose. I want to design things that uh, have not only a physical or a sport performance quality to enhance performance, but also to educate, right? A lot of times when you look at the French grip, or this is a saber grip, I don't have a French grip right here. Actually, I do. Hold on for a second. So we were talking about the French grip, the modern French, right here.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and I wanted to show you where the idea of that design came from. Actually, my other grip is they're all at my shop, but I have this one that is not at my shop, but it's not finished, right? You look here.
It's got that same protrusion that made its way into the modern French, right?
Correct. Okay. Now you'll see that this quillin and this quillin, essentially, this is the modern French grip. It's essentially it's in fact based on the exact same model. Sans the quillins. These are what initially made the grip or the what's called the Dos Santos legal, and the similarities there. People say that they're. I can't help people visual illiteracy, but
Right.
this sort of thing here is so yeah. So I designed it based on this, but also um, that when you teach a student about the way to hold a fencing grip, right,
Mhm.
or one, you often come across them holding it like this, right,
Right, real ham-fisted.
a little ham-fisted, and then when you tell them to, pinch with these fingers and use these fingers, these are called your manipulators, and these are your assistant or aids. Um, and when you tell them to do that and keep the point against the wrist, again, they're disillusioned. Again, they're like, what is this? This doesn't make sense to hold
This
it
isn't
like
fencing, this isn't sword fighting. Yeah.
right, right. But in reality, it is. But in this grip, you hear this is the Mark II that has what I call the precision point here.
Oh, I didn't even see that little nub right there. Hold that
Yeah,
up again.
that's the Mark II.
And so
You'll see
that's meant to be on your middle finger or your index.
your manipulator fingers, these
Okay.
two fingers, which you pinch like a toothpick. And this
Mhm.
just, it doesn't grasp, it just allows you to, uh, for this finger not to slip. So a lot of times my coach would say, fingers tighter when my point was off. But he meant this, my point to guide the
Yeah,
point.
secure. Yeah.
Right. But also here, your grasp, can you see it? You're
There we go.
grasping
Perfect. There we go.
this, right? But this could have, I could have gone like full 90 degrees, or I could have gone whatever. But no, they're only there to meet and find purchase along this edge.
Mhm.
And it becomes much more ergonomic and comfortable for fencers to understand the proper technique, and for instructors uh, to explain how to hold the grip properly, how to hold the French
And so
grip.
this French, right? Does the Saber Super Sport grip, does it have that same manipulator knob under the index?
It doesn't, but I thought of doing that. It
Yeah, I
doesn't,
mean that
but
seems like it'd be quite I mean, because it is more little vertical cuts and stuff takes place in planes, not really too much thrusting. I could see it definitely being like a big boon when you do like some point and line stuff, you know?
right. Well, I of course designed. What I think is an excellent saber grip. I think it's fantastic.
I
It really
like
does.
the thumb indent that it has. That seems really cool.
Well, I'll show you where it came from. Right, as we say that we talk about that I combine the antique with the modern. This is an absolute replica of the actual one is on a Schlager, uh, fencing Schlager, but this is from like 1930 something, right? And this is the uh, example of one of their grips, right?
Yeah, and incredibly ergonomic. And you see companies like kind of Harut. I don't know if you're aware of like their Cobra grip, kind of starting to imitate that style and that shape as well.
Yeah, if I do say so myself, that came much later after my grip came along.
Let's
So
go, Phil.
sorry, but my point is this: is because of the technology I'm using, that yes, 3D printing that I'm using, these 3D prints have a carbon fiber laced in through them, so they become very, very strong, very, very strong.
And not to sidetrack you, but in terms of distribution, do you have any plans in the future to, show up to NAC, show up to Summer Nationals and be a vendor there?
Yeah, if I make some money.
That's got to be
Absolutely.
worth the flight
We're
ticket, right?
growing. I see all the people who support me and who have bought my grips and help me out, um, as part of a team.
Mhm.
And I get feedback from them all the time, and I change my designs based on that feedback. If it's valid, I test it, I alter it, and I change it. So, for example, I wanted to show you this. This is again a saber grip, right? It has a little flat piece right
Right.
there, just like a regular, but this is more like a regular saber grip, right? It's not, it doesn't have that thing. But the core, see, they're using regular, there's a core in here of metal
Mhm.
and then a rubber exterior, and it twists along that rubber exterior, which I, of course, think, I think that probably could cause some issues, stability issues.
Right.
But when when you injection mold something, if you have areas of large, sort of a large uh, uh, contouring, you're going to get what's called sinking. So you don't, this sort of thing right here would have to be a hollow sort of grip with ridges in it to support the interior. I don't want to
Mhm.
go completely into it, but if you wanted to make it a solid grip, it would sink in this area. The,
Mhm.
the material would sink in this area. That's why these
And it
mass
would just be
production,
heavier too. So,
well, the mass production quality of these kind of forbid the that sort of extreme contouring, of
mhm.
palpable contouring. Their
Harut Cobra.
yeah, their contouring is very, very limited. It's cool. It
Yeah.
looks cool.
Actually, give me one second. I have it right here. One
Yeah.
sec. I must admit, I was influenced by my peers at the club. All the cool, good people had him, and I was like, oh, well, maybe if I get a Cobra grip. So yeah, we have it here.
They are cool. They are cool, but of course, yeah. See, the contouring is there, but it's essentially the same width as a regular saber grip, and it has a little bit of contouring.
Right.
Um,
They do kind of have. It's not as dramatic
right.
as the one on your Super Sport, but they do have that like kind of ergonomic little indent for the thumb right there to go in. And I
They
have been
do.
enjoying that
They,
a bit. It
yeah,
definitely does feel to me at least. It feels a bit better, a little more
yeah.
soft in the
I had
hands than a traditional.
many years ago called the Lancet Fencing store, and that I couldn't keep that up going. But I sold grips that looked very much like this, and I think that may have been some of the influence there. This grip, the Super Sport grip, you can see here, the important thing here is the width of the
Mhm.
thumb. This provides a really, really nice purchase for your thumb and indexing of the guard back
And
and
it
forth.
looks it looks I mean dramatically wider. And th this one almost gets thinner right here at some
Yeah,
points on the thumb.
yeah. This is
Harder. Yeah.
it's actually considerably wider. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, don't be surprised if you get an order for a grip or two from me after this. You're selling
I
me
I
already.
do so, and not only because I want the business, but I want people to realize that this grip has a considerable difference in, even though they look similar, in the design and the purpose for each part of the design. Right.
Right. I mean, you've
And
clearly put a lot, the devil's in the details, right?
right. And we can see, in Saber, I've seen many Saber grips, and they have these little hooks down here, right here, and yeah, they're cool and everything. But really, the way you manipulate your guard is with your thumb, right?
Right.
Back and
That's when
forth.
you angulate to parry and all that.
Right, which is why I designed the guard control grip right here.
Oh, that one's sick. That's the one I was talking about. I like that one a lot.
This one here, and you can simply shift your thumb, and the guard moves very
That's
nicely,
sick.
very, very intuitively. But these are great grips, if I do say so. They're very strong, and they have this nylon carbon fiber core with a rubber exterior, and it's all fastened together in such a way that it won't twist, it won't alter or give you any other feeling other than control over your weapon.
Yeah, and I like how it gets kind of wider and fatter down towards the palm area, so it's not just like noodling around in your grip after a strong
Right,
beat or something.
more substantial. You feel like and this all helps you control the weapon in your hand, and it literally makes your weapon float. Yeah, well, not literally, figuratively makes your weapon
Yeah.
float.
Well, I
But
mean,
it
like,
does feel as if your weapon is really floating in your hand when you're using this grip. I can't. Well, if I do say so myself, I can't advocate this more for saber fencers. It's a
yeah,
lovely.
I'll definitely be placing an order soon.
All my grips have that in mind, the idea that there's a problem to be solved, however minute, or
Mhm.
an idea how to make it better, and I approach it from that perspective. Everything from that perspective. My
Awesome.
my ambidextrous grips, they can be used in Paralympic games, so people don't have to have right and left-handed.
Oh, that's
Uh,
sick. Yeah.
right, but also to encourage even HEMA or classical fencers to use pistol grips. People think that pistol grips are, not fencing, but
Yeah,
in
I get that a lot from not only new people, but yeah, my more HEMA inclined friends and stuff. They're like, oh, this nonsense, it's too sportified, it's too modern.
yeah, I guarantee, like I said, if you look at, uh, it's all about having control of the weapon, right?
Mm.
And this almost comes to being almost a pistol grip. And if you look at them in perspective, you'll see that the, can you see?
Yeah, yeah, they kind of follow the same shape. If you can move it slightly over. Perfect. There we go. Yeah, they
There,
follow the same shape.
and there, that's your bottom quillion, and that's how you use. you manipulate the weapon with the torque of the weapon,
Mhm.
right? And then these your assistant fingers come down here, right, like that. Um, and that's what happens on my. Um,
Is that the peregrine?
this is the Peregrine Master's grip.
I think it's, I mean, just if, aesthetically, it's so striking just having, the dual kind of like thorn design coming out the top.
The flares, right? So
Yeah,
that's a brand aesthetic
I like
that
it.
marks most of my design. If you notice in this, it's all based on this flaring
Mhm.
quality, right? I wanted to show you the Spanish foil.
Mhm.
This is only a replica, right? But if you notice the Spanish foil here, this is a replica. They have an offset quilliam. See that?
Right. And what's the purpose of that?
Ergonomics. You hold it
Yeah,
the
no,
exact,
wow. Yeah, it gives you a little more space for the bottom fingers.
and
Wow.
it's the exact same, right? And you'll
I
see
think
that.
it's just so interesting how your design ethos, it's drawing modernity out of, the most traditional like facets of sword design from back then. That's so cool.
Well, there's a spirit in Western design, and that is advancement.
Mhm.
We don't stick, we don't try it, we don't say past this is modern and past this is history. We have a living history, and our sport continues to evolve, change,
Right.
right? If you see this is an Italian grip,
That's an interesting one.
right? Because I changed the grip.
Oh, and that's kind of coming back. That's almost like the bottom of your modern French.
That's correct. So you'll see it just all it does is simply, and if you notice, it has an angle,
Right.
and that is an angle, the angle of your palm as you hold the weapon.
Oh.
Right.
And a lot of foilists too now. I mean, I don't have a foil on me. I'm not a foilist, but a lot of them will kind of have their hand not directly up like this, but they kind of tilt it and angulate it off to the side nowadays, you know?
Another quality, the modern fencers, because of the pistol grip, will put their weapon in what's called the half pronated or half supine position, which is the thumb right along the top,
Mhm.
directing the point. You'll see that in epes. If you sort of look back and see the where the edge is, or where the edge is supposed to be,
Right.
or implied, um, and you notice that the different angles of your fist, which don't necessarily correspond with the parries, but the angles of your fifth, you have a supinated uh, and prone, right? And some people
Mhm.
do hold it a little bit like
Little,
this.
yeah.
This is I designed this a long time ago. This is the Spanish modern grip right here.
Mhm.
I didn't design this. I fabricated
Yeah. Okay.
it, okay, out of stuff because I was a nerd, and I designed this. Uh, and I designed this foil, right? The thumb on top with blah blah blah. But
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I can redesign this Spanish modern grip.
Oh, and there it is.
Right, exactly. This is the what I call the aguila,
Mhm.
which is this Spanish word for eagle. And I am coming out with an ambidextrous version of this as well. And this is
So
the
does the
idea.
ambidextrous
On it,
version just lack the flare on the top?
no, the ambidextrous version would have two flares on top. It
Oh,
would
well, there
be
you go.
dynamic, right? Like it would have two flares like this.
Mm.
Right. In any case, it also has this part, but it also has this part. This is I use there. I say this is for classical fencing and theatrical fencing. This is not legal in competition, right?
Right.
Because uh, one of the rules is if you have to release the grip in order to change position, and this kind of hooking quality of this makes you have to release it.
Mm.
Uh, while the French grip, you don't have to release it all
You
to
can just kind of sidle up and down it.
right, just like just like a regular French grip. But in any case, I don't think this should be illegal either. We're strapped in
Right.
uh,
With
with
cords, yeah, it doesn't matter.
cords, and you can't. you can't really turn it into a throwing weapon
Yeah,
anyways.
that'd be
That was,
ridiculous. That'd be funny if it was like an expo thing, but yeah, that's ridiculous.
that's the purpose
So
of the ball, right?
I
That's the purpose.
I wanted to talk to you. I mean, what you said earlier, you just fell in love with this thing and you needed everyone to like it and you just wanted to promote it. I mean, that struck such a chord with me because and that's where I'm at in my life right now, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this sport is just everything to me, and I just need everyone, I just have this like stupid, insane need for everyone to see how cool it is, and for us to be on the big screen. I want to go, to a sports bar and smash a pint during like a World Cup or something.
I don't know if that'll
Um,
happen, but
I
I
mean,
also wanted to be outside. I also wanted something that we could do outside.
right,
And
right, just like around.
mhm,
Yeah, so
yes.
I wanted to pick your brain on something, and you're not going to offend me at all if you disagree with me. So I just like to get your honest opinion. So one of my things, right, this hill that I'm like absolutely willing to be gutted and killed on, is that the sports presentation we would experience so much success, in my opinion, if we were willing to embrace, or not traditional, but like modern sporting presentation as EV, colors. Why are we all in whites? Why are we all in the same silver lame, right? Why can we not have a version of our sport where there's some guy in a lame covered in flames facing off against this dude with like lightning bolts across it. And it doesn't even have to be anything that gauche or that, gaudy or whatever. But what would you think about introducing something like that into our sport? Like, do you think that has any place in the modernization of fencing?
It could. I think the problem for me, I like it. The problem is that not everybody's going to have the best of taste, so it's gonna.
Right, right. But I think that's kind of part of it too. It's
In
like it's
modern
fun to
age,
see the goofy
people
ones.
with
And
penises on there,
well, we would make some regulations, to keep that
I'm,
kind of stuff out.
I'm kidding. Uh,
But I'm saying like at like the pro level, at the pro level.
I think it's very, very cool. Yeah. I do like the streamlined quality of our uniforms. I like the
Mhm.
fact that they harken back to uh, old ideas. I mean, football wears knickers, baseball wears knickers.
Right. But they also
Fencing,
have, all their individualization. I think that's a big part of what's holding us back is a lack of individualization in a modern society, specifically America, where we value that so highly.
I think it'd be cool if it had to do with your team or your sport. Yeah, like an American or Italian or if it's the Spanish team. I think there's room for more color
Right.
in the on the
On the
uniform.
uniform or whatever. I think a big place to start with is the guards. I think it'd be so cool if there's like some sort of like who knows how this would be made, but like a scratch resistant sticker or something that you could slap over the top of your guard. That'd be obviously tricky for epee, but for saber, that'd be sick.
It would be very cool. Unfortunately, people don't recognize exactly how much punishment we put these weapons through.
Yeah, I mean, this guard is not that old, and it's already just scuffed
It,
to hell and
yeah,
getting all chewed up at the edges. So
it'll get destroyed. It'll get
yeah,
destroyed.
it'd
Yeah,
just be
it's cool. It's
nonsense.
cool idea on the guard, absolutely. To have
Yeah,
colors, interior colors, perhaps. Again, it's all cost issue.
right.
You know,
Yeah, it's
cost.
specialization, customization, it all costs money.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
What do you,
I think that's all I have for you now, Phil. Is there anything else you wanted? What do you want people to know about Lancet Fencing? Is there any last words?
well, I could use the support. Anybody who comes into Lancet Fencing and looks at my products and has an open mind and realizes that essentially that I'm not trying to do anything revolutionary. The modern French grip is not revolutionary.
Hmm.
You know, it is a French grip right through and through. You can see the angle, this angle of the grip. In any case, the more support I get, the more people who are willing to experiment, take the chance on my work, the farther I can go, and the farther I can go into putting, kind of a thoughtful design element into fencing as opposed to mass production techniques. Eventually, I'd like to be able to produce metal grips, but at this point, the investment
Cost, yeah.
cost is so high. but the more support I get, the more that could become a reality. And I appreciate every person who comes to my shop, and I'm always there to answer any questions. So you write a message, it pops up on my iPad where I'm probably watching, I don't know, Star Trek,
There you go.
and I will answer your question. I will do my best to respond. A lot of I think it's important that a lot of people know that I'm only one guy.
Right.
I'm
And
not the.
that's massively impressive, by the way. I mean, the quality of stuff that you're putting out right now as a one-man team is insane.
I do appreciate that. Thank you, thank you.
Of course.
And I do my best to bring quality products in. You know, cool design products, things I think
Yeah.
look.
And I
Uh,
think that's such a big thing too, is like you're saying, not only the form but the function, right? Both of them coincided. I love that you're keeping like the aesthetic cool factor at the front of your brain as well. That's tight.
yeah, I want it to look cool. I want our people who show their equipment to, you know, someone interested in fencing to go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's oh gosh, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but that is such a big thing is just making the sport cool, taking steps. You know, it's like we get so caught up in like, oh, you know, these high-minded strategies to promote our sport and oh, get into the schools and all this stuff. All that is important, but we're, you know, humans are monkeys. And at the end of the day, it's like it's got to be cool. It's just got to be sick, you know?
It's got to be cool, but again, you can make something. My point is that I, I want to use my experience to make it look cool, but also functional. Making
Right.
it cool, but also with in mind to sometimes often lost, you know, proper techniques or of our art. Something that we 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 sort of take for granted when we're learning in lesson, but you know, the shape of the object actually kind of tells you what is why it works or why it's that way. You know,
Right. You
so
just need to study it.
yeah,
That's awesome. Well, Phil, I genuinely thank you so much. This is the highlight of my weekend. The passion and the drive you have for the sport is so readily apparent, and is genuinely such a pleasure to talk to you.